Bibles. We're still with Iron Sharpens Iron, but we're going to take another turn. So we're just going to briefly drop in Proverbs 27, verse 17. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friends. The countenance of his friends. And here is where we go into Matthew chapter 11, because I want to download something real quick, and I'm going to be before you long. Verse 1, maybe to verse 6. So we still on the concept. And as our overseer, Pastor Rohan Watson, said the first night, that in order for something to be able to be used, it has to be put into the furnace, beaten and shaped. And verse 17 there says, in Proverbs 27, verse 17, you got to, after you've been used and shaped and formed, everybody around you's countenance should change. Countenance there is the whole embodiment of the exterior of that person, and everybody connected to you, whether bloodline or non-bloodline. But in France, they're talking about sticking closer than a brother. So they're talking about a relationship, a covenant partnership, a partnership that goes beyond just papers, just words. And so here we see in Matthew chapter 11, something that shifted here based on how and where the person was. Our Archbishop declared today that we got to stay focused. And so we're in that concept, that same vein of staying focused and removing the distractions. And here we are. And the Bible says this, and it came to pass when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. So this is already after he sent them out 2 by 2 to test the anointing, to be able to impart information into people after their time of training. Isn't it amazing that nobody today want to be trained? Nobody today want to be told anything. Nobody today want to be corrected. Nobody today want to submit to anything. Everybody just want to go out and mess up people's life. And they always have these words, men of God and men in general. They always have these words when you're in a situation. They call it wisdom, but it's the direct opposite of that wisdom. It's something to pull you away from the focus and away from your countenance to be used to uplift everybody else. It moves you out of position. And it's amazing to me that after Christ did all of this stuff, after everything was going on, we get into this text in an undaunted way to see something here. Verse 2, now when John, watch this, we're talking about the same John that before the birth came, when Mary walked in the room of Elizabeth, there was a leaping in her womb. There was a connection built already spiritually, but there was a covenant built in the womb. In the womb, they were connected, they were intertwined, they were in sync. They were sharpening each other from in the womb. But the concept here is, watch this now, when John, look at where he is. Because environment, position, and the place where you are plays a big role in your countenance and your outlook. And if you're ready to receive counsel, and if you're ready to receive what God is trying to tell you for the next level. Now, pay attention to that, because the environment and the atmosphere play that big role, but also it's also a teachable moment for you as well. Because as the man of God said in the last night service, you get put back in the furnace. So this is a moment where this was already prophetically spoken over John's life. Now, how is it that, watch the concept. Now, when John had heard, how is it that the hearing changed because of the place he was in? Now, when John heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 disciples. He in prison now. Now, this was prophesied. So if we really chain link the text or cross-reference the text, we begin to see that John was sent to prepare the way for the person who was to come after. The Bible also says that as he increases, John will decrease. Now, here he is, the man of God, the prominent, the baptizer of many, the preacher who was creating, had a mega ministry by the River Jordan, evangelizing and teaching people and raising them up. Here it is now, his atmosphere changed. The freedom and the liberty he had was constricted. He was in a place, but he still wasn't at the place where he wanted to be sharpened, because his emotion psychologically broke him in this environment he was in. So he was quite the sharpener, but when it was his turn to be sharpened, he decided that he needed to take another look at what was going on. So he sent the two disciples, verse 3, and said unto him, art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? Isn't it amazing that when we get put back in the furnace, and when God himself is checking our responses, when God himself is trying to form us, because in the book of Jeremiah, he is the potter and we're the clay. How could the clay tell the potter what it is that they desire for him to do? How could the clay tell the potter, you have to fix me like a gun, or you have to fix me like a plate, when he is the potter, he decides. So John reached this place where now his faith was being tested, because he really wasn't ready to accept the fact that his season was over. It is so amazing to me that in every relationship, we never accept the fact that our season is now over. We never accept the fact that it's God that brings things to an end. When Paul and Barnabas couldn't walk together, the scriptures say when two can't walk together except they agree. So here it is now. There is no agreement. There is no arrangement. Doubt and fear kick in because this atmosphere was changed. God was putting them in a place to check his response. And his response was the lack of doubt. And men of God who's listening on the airways and who's on this line, I'm trying to get you to understand that your atmosphere should not stop you from allowing God to shape your life and mold you into who you need to be. And you're not the only ones being affected. Everybody is including me. And so I'm going to elaborate on that in the middle, in the minute, and in the ending, and right before the closing. I'm going to let you understand you're being tested, you're being tried, you're being shaped into the place where God trying to get you as a man, as a leader, as a priest, as a king, small k. And here it is, when your environment shifts, when the relationship shifts, you have doubt that God is still God. Oh, watch this. And said unto him, art thou, verse 3, he that should come, or do we look for another? And Jesus answered, watch this answer. This is so profound. And then I'm about to close. This is so profound. John say, are you the one? Now, he been preaching about this person. And if you track the synoptic gospels, he been preaching about this person whose shoes he can't latch. He can baptize you with fire. I only do it with water. And he was all good as long as he was the leader. He was all good as long as he had the microphone. He was all good as long as he had the entitlement. He was all good as long as he had the title wife or someone in leadership. He was all good until God started to test his life. Until God started to bring him to the place where, John, do you still believe in me even while you're in prison? Even while it's coming to the close of your life and your walk on earth? That don't mean you ain't gonna live on, but are you still able to show me that I could shape you and put you back in the furnace to bring you out to what my glory requires of your life? So he sent the disciples, and they shouldn't even gone. And this is the reason for the name of this conference, Iron Sharpens, the wisdom that he had already downloaded to them. They should have been able to say, hey, pastor, listen, no man, this ain't the will of God here. Because you've been prophesying this to us for so many years. But the problem here is they decided that I have to still be obedient, and you got to give them that. They submitted. That's great. But their leader gave them an inkling of doubt and fear that caused them to go and ask a question that didn't even need to be asked. And so what's the response? Verse 4, Jesus answered and said unto them, go and show John, not tell him. Go and show John, not tell him. So what they say, what he's saying, we know show in the Greek here, and they say show John again, because obviously that means John experienced it the first time, when the heavens opened and confirmed that I'm the beloved son and I'm well pleased in my Father's eyes. So let's go and show God again what's taking place. And so right now, here's what's taking place at this particular time. He's telling the disciples that John sent, please go show John. So they took something with them. When they came in the encounter with another iron, the supreme iron blacksmith, the supreme being, the supreme Elohim, they had an encounter right then, and he inspired them. So what you saying, Bishop, here's what I'm saying, that a man with a man should be inspiration. We should be able to uplift, connect, and build one another, to be able to be inspired to go and show the people who connected to us again who Christ really is, instead of doubting every time that there's trouble, instead of doubting every time that there's a break, instead of doubting every time that something happened and the fire turn up. We in the refiner's fire, men, and we got to be able to withstand the powers of darkness in the evil time, because the time ain't good, the time ain't evil, and you better catch yourself before you wreck yourself, because you're making choices based on your emotions, and you need to line up, and we do things on time in this fellowship, so you need to understand how to submit to time and submit to people. But the problem here is you will have the big names and all the big fame, but you don't understand the protocol of life, and so you here trying to come in when you're ready and don't understand that it's God who's setting time up and periods for you. So he had to show them again, and watch what he said in verse 5. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And so verse 5 close with what God trying to get us to understand, that if we are meant to build the kingdom, and if we are men in general, the first thing we need to understand is, as we're being shaped by the master smith himself, we must first understand, like the preacher said last night, which we were so blessed by the man of God. The preacher said last night that you go back into the furnace, back into the cold water. If you ain't meet specifications, you go back to the same process again. So here it is that John stepped away from what was specified and prophesied on his life, and he decided within himself, this can't be God because I in prison. Don't we understand that God is the God of the prison too? Don't we understand that when we in a place where it feel like we constricted, God is the one that opens up the door when we release a sound from our heart genuinely? Don't we understand that no matter what's going on around us, God is still able to keep you, because he's a keeping God. He's a God that keep you in the midst of the fire. But the problem here is we don't believe it. So we've lost belief. I came to encourage you, to help you to understand, like my Archbishop was saying today, stay focused, but also raise your belief to the standard where God is trying to get you to understand that you don't have to compromise simply because someone walked out of your life. You don't have to compromise because they chose to walk the way that they wanted to walk. And it was so amazing that every time, all the time was good for John. All the nice accolades he was given, all the nice flow he had, he didn't quite understand that it was about to change. So the problem here is not the man, it's the change of the atmosphere that made it happen. And so I was in a similar situation. I was in a relationship for years. In covenant, getting ready, getting married, all of this stuff. And here it is now, when everything was going good, there was no flow, no complaint. When everything that looked right, the atmosphere was good, and everything was okay and fine and nice and dandy, it was great. But now here it is, when the atmosphere changed, and when it was time to shift into what needed to be shifted in, then a switch came in. And everybody decided to flow into the next realm of what they wanted to do. And so what God was trying to tell me is he checking my response as a man. He checking my response. And so what I had to do is I had to step forward into what my purpose was and still choose God over emotions, psychological feelings, selfishness, everything that rise up demonically. I had to choose God. And so I say into the men today that no matter what your atmosphere look like, no matter what going on around you, we must stay focused and in alignment with what God trying to say to us, and be able to be sharpened by God in our atmosphere and in our choices and where we are. John said, go and make sure that this is the Christ, because I don't want to die and he still have to come. When you should have known by what you saw. So go show John everything that he preached, everything that he believed came to pass and is still going on today. So our problem here as men is not basically what's going on around us, but what our belief system is. And so I want to sharpen the men on the line and the men internationally in any way. It's time for us to not look by sight, but hear what the will of the Lord is and be established in what his heart is and stay focused and let every distraction and everything that's going on around you not affect your response, and stand up to the will of God, because it will come to check your life. It came to check mine, and I still focus. I ain't changing because the people badmouth me. I ain't changing because they choosing to say all these negative words. I'm staying focused because God has called all of us to a specific assignment, and it's time for us to answer the call, and we have to be sharpened to do so. We have to go back into the fire for the master and the handy mastery to be able to be pleased with our life. And so be blessed tonight. I leave you with that, and we are wrapping it up. Thank everybody for being on the line. This is our last night of our men's conference. We bless the Lord for everybody on the line. Evangelist Gina, thank you. Minister Rohan, Overseer Rohan, thank you for coming on. Apostle, we bless you. All of our leaders, we bless you. We turn it back over to Evangelist Sunday Ferguson. Oh, na, na, yay. Well then, bless the Lord, oh my soul.